Good morning, everybody. Welcome to today's 1 million by 1 million online rendezvous. This is Sramana, Mitra, founder and CEO of 1M by 1M, coming to you live from Silicon Valley, California. I wish you good morning, good evening, good afternoon, depending on what zone you're in. And 1 million by 1 million, as you know, is the first and only global virtual accelerator for technology startups in the world. Our mission is to help 1 million entrepreneurs reach $1 million and beyond in annual revenue, build $1 trillion in global GDP and 10 million jobs. So we have a very large footprint of the community, the entrepreneur community that we work with. LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, we're live right now on all of those platforms, and on a regular basis we touch a lot of people. Based on these various touch points, various kinds of conversations, interactions, and so forth, one thing we know is that many of you are looking for startup ideas. So throughout this year, I have been publishing startup ideas and responding to startup idea related questions. The process of ideation in prior sessions here, I have dealt with the process of ideation quite a lot. And I've given you all kinds of pointers in all directions. So today, we're going to double click down on a couple of specific points and one idea. So if you remember, if you've been here before, you may remember, and if you don't, let me point you to, if you haven't been here before, let me point you to what is the key resource that we're going to work off of today. It's a post on our blog, 1mby1m.com, and then go to blog. Look for post-COVID startup ideas. There's a whole series of them that I've published, and today we're going to do a panel discussion on one of them. Maureen, let's start the panel discussion next.
If you've been following my work, you know I have recently published 8 startup ideas for the post-COVID world. And entrepreneurs have been starting to work on some of these. The first idea in that, Maureen, could you share that 8 startup ideas for the post-COVID world post? In there is an idea called facilitating travel experiences. And that one of the 1 million by 1 million entrepreneurs have already picked up and started working on. His name is Abe Lederman, and Abe was actually a member of the 1 million by 1 million program earlier on for about 3 years, and he has recently sold his company and was looking to start another, and he zeroed in on this idea and he's working on it. He's back in the 1M by 1M program. He's working with me on a regular basis, and he is developing that idea. So in general, my guidance to entrepreneurs who are looking at taking these ideas and doing something with them, let me just give you the sense of what are your options. First and foremost, these ideas are free, and I have published them. They're available in the public domain. So they are without royalty. You can take any of these ideas and do anything you want with it. You don't have to check in with me. You don't need my permission. I have basically put them out there, and you can do whatever you want with it. And then some of the entrepreneurs who are zeroing in on these ideas are choosing to work with me. And there are, the option there is what Abe is doing. Abe has come back to the 1M by 1M program, and he has picked up one of the ideas and is working with me as part of the 1M by 1M premium program. You can do that as well if that's something that you want to do. Now, this particular idea we're going to spend more time on today, and maybe we'll spend time on other ideas as well as we go along, but this one is particularly interesting to me because I also have a close friend who's a venture capitalist who loves this idea, and we've been kicking this one around, and and it's one that I'm extremely passionate about. So if you decide to work on this idea, and if you decide to join 1M by 1M Premium and work with me on this idea, and then we get to a situation where you build enough, enough of validation and momentum and so forth, so that my friend, this investor wants to invest in your idea, then there's a very good possibility that I might join your board and, take a more active interest. Now, regardless of that, anybody who picks up any of these ideas and decides to work on these within the 1 million by 1 million program, I will introduce you to investors. We work with hundreds of investors. I will introduce you to those investors if you are ready to be introduced. So many options here. Let's double click down on this one. And I think it's a really, really interesting one. Let me just summarize the idea, and then we're going to start brainstorming about it, and I will start answering questions. There are many entrepreneurs who actually wrote to me in this last week expressing interest in this idea. If you're here today, please join the broadcast and open up your audio line so that you can weigh in. So while you do that, let me summarize the idea. In December 2017, I wrote a piece called Let's Go Beyond Superficial Virtual Interactions in 2018, encouraging my readers to look for opportunities to interact more in person through meaningful activities shared. And I shared my own experience with our literary group, Caravanserai Literati. At the end of 2019, upon request, I published our literati reading list, as my readers were asking what we were reading. Well, little did I know at that point. So our literati used to meet once a month. Whatever book we were reading, we were meeting once a month for a literary salon with a very elaborate meal that often was aligned with the theme of the book we were reading. And at one point we were reading Nikolai Gogol, and the friend of ours who was hosting that salon organized Ukrainian food and so on and so forth. It was a great deal of fun. But I, when COVID kicked in, literati to self-preserve, we had to go virtual. And we had to operate through Zoom, and there was no choice. So our wonderful in-person salon had to go virtual. Nonetheless, every evolutionary process comes with its own set of problems and opportunities. Today, I'm going to reflect on a startup idea that is born out of the isolation that humanity is facing in the post-COVID world. Long before the coronavirus pandemic, humanity was already experiencing a loneliness pandemic. In quarantine, a lot of people living alone found themselves starved for emotional connection. As I watched Zoom become the social network of the COVID era, I also observed that it is not easy to spend an hour on small talk through video. In my own social network, I started suggesting salon-style discussion topics so that 6 people can actually have a meaningful conversation rather than chit-chat and shoot the breeze. The latter is wholly unsatisfying and leaves one empty and irritated. Through all this, literati transitioned effortlessly into a lovely congregation of a dozen people discussing Sadat Hassan Manto's Bitter Fruit in April, Virginia Woolf's Mrs. Dalloway in May, and Kurt Vonnegut's Slaughterhouse-Five in June. Since then, we've read other books as well, and we are currently, we read Speak Memory, Nabokov's memoir, in July. In August, we read Joyce's Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man. We just read Jane Austen's Emma in November. So it's been a wonderful and very seamless transition. But I have started also thinking about a new social network to scale this idea so that other people can participate in an experience like this. So the question is, should we do a new social network? This makes me wonder if a social network can be built on top of Zoom or another video conferencing platform to bring together small literary groups that can explore meaningful friendships and deep connections. In doing so, I still believe that the in-person nature of the interaction needs to be the ultimate goal. COVID will one day end. Today's virtual-only interaction is not going to be a permanent condition. Humanity will again sit around the table and share meals. Thus, one of the primary conditions I would impose on this network is that it should be based on proximity. How far are members willing to drive? 30 minutes may be ideal. There may be other clustering algorithms that can drive matches for groups of 8 to 12 people to come together. Shared alma maters could be one. Shared taste in literature could be another. Our literati, for example, reads a lot of classics and masterpieces. Another group may be interested in reading crime fiction from various countries like Australia. There's a wonderful series called Miss Fisher Murder Mysteries. There's a series, Botswana, this lady detective called Precious Ramatsawe, and so on. There is something magical about a group of people getting to know one another through literature. The consistency of convening around meaningful, meaty topics on a regular basis has a recipe for long-term relationships taking root. And when these interactions eventually get back to being over meals, in person, these connections would further intensify. Notice the framework I'm discussing is one that consists only of small groups of 8 to 12 people, no more, could be even 6. Its effectiveness is in the concentrated attention, the process of getting to know one another deeply. Quite the opposite of the superficial virtual interactions flooding Facebook and TikTok. So let's talk about functionality. In reflecting upon what features and functions such a network would need to have, I go back to the Literatis workflow. We use doodles for scheduling. One of us leads each salon and is required to put together study notes and discussion points. We use Google Docs and email for this purpose. The downside is that we do not have a central repository where we could access everything long term. It would be a nice to have. And each salon, in person, after each salon, we upload photos to a Facebook group. We celebrate birthdays. Nothing terribly complicated, but some gentle workflow elements that enable a dozen people to collaborate and interact on an ongoing basis. The additional and more significant value of the social network would be in the matchmaking and clustering of bringing compatible people together. We built our group within our social networks. Everyone in it is someone's friend. Most of us have known one another for many years. But the social network we're considering as this venture would need to be able to bring compatible strangers together. It's a matchmaking of friendship. In doing so successfully, it would contribute immensely towards alleviating the loneliness pandemic that is likely to last well beyond COVID-19. There is also the opportunity to create user-generated content around study guides and discussion notes to be shared across groups. And finally, virtual interactions around specific books that multiple groups are reading. But let's talk about business model and market size. My guess is that participants should be charged $10 a month or $100 a year to be in this community. This means with 1 million users, we're looking at 100 million annual recurring revenue as in this business. This is just back of the envelope. Is this possible? I think so. Can it be larger? I hope so. The population of lonely people who are also literature aficionados presumably is much larger than 1 million. Besides, the groups could also be built around film or theater. You could watch film, you could watch theater. We love a series called National Theatre Live that broadcasts the theater from England. Fabulous quality theater. There could be a group around that. In any case, 100 million ARR business would be valued at $1 billion. So in principle, this is a unicorn idea. If the ARR level gets to $1 billion based on 10 million users, now we are talking serious numbers. Humanity's search for human connection in the pre-COVID world led up to creepy trends like Tinder, swiping for matches and on-demand hookups, unhealthy to the extreme, damaging to self-esteem, soul-destroying, dangerous to the body, these trends have left people feeling hollow. I believe that a healthy, wholesome, soulful literature and film-based social network would create a different organizing principle for engineering small, deeply anchored communities. They would fill the world with meaningful friendships and even romance that blossoms in natural, organic ways, not the creepy sort. All right, so this is the idea that we are, discussing today. I'm going to let everybody who wants to talk, weigh in and share your thoughts. What makes you interested, and what your thoughts are about this idea, and then we'll start brainstorming. I'll give you more insights into what I'm thinking and learn more from you. So Emily Ackler and Tony Scott are on the call. Emily is doing a startup in this area, and Tony has a film production company. Tony is a very long-term friend of mine. We did a cooking group together that was a hell of a lot of fun. So he has some idea about what I'm talking about in these, small, cohesive groups. So let's get Emily to start. Emily Ackler, could you please unmute your line and tell us what you're thinking on this idea?
Sure. Hi, everyone. It's great to be here this morning. My name is Emily Ackler, and I'm calling in from Chicago. I'm the co-founder and CEO of a startup called Italic Type, and we are building a new community for avid readers and book lovers and people who want to connect and form friendships over books. Very similar to a lot of the ideas that Sramana just discussed. We have been working on this. Yeah, so we are currently in a private beta with a few hundred early users on our platform right now, and we are actually just about to soft launch publicly in the next couple weeks.
And does your system have, or the way you have designed your product, does it have these characteristics of being able to bring small groups together from among strangers?
So we are started with the idea of wanting to build a new social network for book lovers. You might be familiar with Goodreads, which is kind of the main incumbent kind of digital hub for readers today. It was bought by Amazon in 2013, and it kind of has this frozen in time quality to it, where it looks like not much has been done to the product in about 10 years. And so we started with the observation that Goodreads is really not a pleasure to use. It's not a nice place to spend time, and that readers really want and deserve something better.
Social media site. Goodreads is a review site. People go and review books there and read other people's reviews. It's not really a social media site.
Well, the main experience is dominated with this social feed that is imported from your Facebook friends that shows you what all your Facebook friends are reading. I agree with you that it's not a place where there's a lot of interaction, but that is the main, 90% of the feature that you see on the home screen. So we thought it could be done much, much better. But we wanted to start with this idea that instead of building a really broad social network, we wanted to start with more of a kind of private walled garden sort of idea. So eventually we plan to matchmake and kind of connect strangers online, but to start with, we wanted to start with people that you actually know in real life. And so the big inspiration for me for starting Italic Type was I started a book club in Chicago about 7 years ago. And I started that book club because I had been a really big reader growing up always, but then went to college, started working after, and I fell out of the habit of reading for pleasure. One day I woke up in my late 20s and I realized I couldn't remember the last time I read a novel. This was very disturbing to me. So I started a fiction book club to really address this and thought that with the social accountability of the group, that would help me read more. And it did help me read more in that way. And then also, like you noted, just the positive effects of talking to people about books. You always learn something new from someone else's, experience of what they bring to the book. And it's a really remarkable way to meet new people and create deeper relationships and create more meaningful connection. So I thought, wow, wouldn't it be great if everyone could be in my book club, or if everyone could have this experience? And I thought, how can we kind of break off pieces of what's going on in that traditional book club experience and put it into a digital platform so that more people could have more access? So before COVID, I thought there were all sorts of normal reasons why you might want to have a book club-like exchange with somebody that you don't live around. You might have friends or former colleagues from other jobs or from school all over the country or all over the world, or maybe even just your schedules don't match up, or somebody just had like a new baby and so they're not really available to meet at the same time, but they still want to read and they still want to have a discussion point with you. And so it's really our first prototype is a system to connect with and invite friends and colleagues that you know in real life to read books with you at the same time and discuss along the way as you read. So you socially interact in two different ways. One is you can do a group read, which is reading a book together at the same time with one or more people, or after you finish a book, you can send a direct personal recommendation to another reader. And when they start to read it, you get notified and you have that same kind of chat message lined up to discuss. And our chat is also very intentionally not designed to be like real-time IM. It does not take the place of a in-person meeting at the end of a book club, for example, but really just a way to connect with people along the way and get the motivation and incentive to carve out more time to read in your daily life. And so our chat, like I mentioned, it's not real time, but it is excellent like a message board. So we batch email notifications throughout the day. So if somebody wrote a comment on one of my shared books with somebody else in the afternoon, I might get that at 5 o'clock and be like, oh, Maggie just read more of this book and now she's 50 pages ahead of me. I want to read tonight so I can catch up and talk to her about it.
I see. So it's your idea is pretty much an online idea. It's all virtual interactions and people are reading books together and interacting around books. That's what you're doing.
Yes.
And what's the business model?
So we are pursuing a subscription model. It'll be like a freemium subscription where some basic usage for free. So the main Goodreads functionality that most people use is the ability to create your list of books, like kind of this is your book tracking, what I'm currently reading, the things that I want to read, and what I finished. And so we have that system as well, and that'll likely be for free for users always. And then the subscription will kick in once you start using some of the premium features like the social interactions. And then we also have another note-taking feature on what we call the book board. Every book you read on a tile type, you get your own dedicated book board space for, and that's your place to put all your notes and quotes and ideas and things that you want to extract and pull out. And so those will be the features that will kick in the monthly subscription, and we're thinking like $4 or $5 a month.
All right. Well, Emily, very interesting that you're doing this. Let's hear from some of the other people on the call. Tony, do you want to talk next?
Sure. Thanks. Get my video started if I can. So I can say hi, everyone. So now supposedly it's starting. Maybe it's not. Anyway, hello all. I'm Tony Scott. I'm in Los Angeles. I'm the writer-director and former tech person who escaped from Silicon Valley a few years ago. The interesting idea, Sramana, I think that, although I like the idea of being able to tie this into ultimate in-person meetings, I think that the problem is that there are certain places where you could do that, say, for example, Silicon Valley or Chicago, perhaps, where there's a large enough population to get a group of people who want to discuss Seneca's histories or ancient Greek philosophy or something, then you could probably do that. But if you're in Jackson, Mississippi, where I grew up, The likelihood of finding 8 or to 12 other people, or even 4 other people who would all or be interested in doing that and lining those people up into a group would be very low. And I think that the idea of giving people who would be interested in discussing things of this nature with others, no matter where they are in the world, is something to be positive. And I think that might have a more broad application than if you try to force it into it has to be in a situation where people ultimately will get together on a direct face-to-face basis.
So you could have options. You could have both options. A group can decide to be completely local and
sure.
Or a group can be broader as well.
Exactly. So, and I think either case is fine. Where let people decide what they want. I'm not positive about the suggested pricing model. I think that would have to be tested to see whether or not people would be willing to pay $10 a month or $100 a year for this. I think especially if you're going to do that, then there would need to be probably more content direction from the company itself on a particular project.
So you cut off for a moment. I couldn't hear the last bit that you said. Could you rewind and rerun?
I said that on the pricing model, if you're really thinking you're going to get $10 a month as a subscription, that there would need to be more that would be provided by the application in terms of, for example, if you're discussing a particular piece of literature or a movie or art, that somebody is sort of the host to help do that. Think of the master class model a bit, even if it's just the same one person, let's say, talking about a particular book, maybe it's the author or that's a critic or reviewer of the book, and we have that content that then helps provide the basis of the discussion around the particular piece of literature or film or art, whatever you want to discuss. Because then it becomes a little bit more like there's a learning opportunity as well as a social interaction opportunity. So,
yeah, so I think the one thing that we have learned in our book club is that the person who's leading a particular book has to do a significant amount of research to come up with the background reading, the notes, and the discussion guidelines and so forth, and that could all be provided as part of this service, in that there is a whole repository of books and related material to do a salon around, or do a project around.
Yeah, I mean, I think that what it does is it allows people to create salons more easily, because then so much of it's already been, some of the heavy lifting has been done for them, and it makes it more attractive for people.
Yeah, that was my intent all along, yes. Okay, good, we're on the same page, yeah? Yeah.
So I think that that's really the most important parts of it, is to say, what do people feel like they're getting from it, from the application, as opposed to just another way to connect. And it has to be, if you're going to be charging for it, then that's certainly going to need to be there. Also, obviously, there are advertising opportunities for this kind of a project. If you have people that are signed up for this, not only would publishers and also film distributors be interested, because then they know, okay, these people are interested in these projects, these kinds of things. Fine, we can have a very targeted outreach to them, and that's very positive. For example, if I know that there are people who have read a bunch of romantic dramas, and we're doing or watch a bunch of romantic dramas in terms of film, and that are engaged in that, if I can target that group of people, that's a very effective group that would, for a movie, that would be more of a romantic drama, right? Because it would be very cost effective and help generate a virality of discussion out beyond the typical Facebook, YouTube, digital kind of stuff.
Yeah, very good point. Actually, let's listen to other people, and then I'll share a few thoughts with you. One of the, we just watched this documentary, The Social Dilemma. Tristan Harris and others have talked about all the different techniques, tools and techniques that social media sites have used and social media apps have used to engage.
Yep.
And one of the thoughts I have is that any team that takes something like this on should have somebody on that team who has deep experience in designing engagement. And there are specific programs at Stanford and elsewhere that teach that kind of engagement techniques and so forth. So we want somebody on these, whichever team takes this on, to have that expertise. And then the other thought I want to underscore is the matchmaking aspect. This is, after all, there is an eHarmony of friendship kind of side to this. So the people who would want to read classics are a certain kind of people who want to bother with reading Dante's Inferno is a certain kind of person and has to be matched with another set of people who have that kind of rigor and capacity and tenacity for literature. And that's a different category than the one who wants to read crime fiction or the one that wants to, do maybe a group around romantic comedy and so forth. So I think the matchmaking aspect is very, very significant here.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I think it's good. So, but just make sure that it's when you're talking about matchmaking, it's also friendship matchmaking, not just necessarily.
It is friendship matchmaking. It's primarily friendship matchmaking. The romance, I would say, the romance may happen or not, but really what we are doing is friendship matchmaking.
Absolutely. Yep.
So, who else wants to speak? Lalit, do you want to speak? I see you on the audio.
Yeah, sure, Sramana. Sorry, I'm not on video, but hello, everyone. My name is Lalit Kumar. Yeah, my name is Lalit Kumar. I have also been toying with this idea, about building a social network around, some shared interests, especially literature and books and films and poetry and so on, right? Because as we all know, the shared interest or the shared passion, it drives deeper connections between people, and that's what most of the folks are looking for, right? So I have some ideas, Sramana, and one ancillary idea to this is also, I heard Emily and Tony and you speak, right? And I kind of relate to some of the features and some of the ideas that you folks articulated. And on the ancillary, I also had another kind of an idea related to the creators, right? Say for writers, for example, or painters who draws or sketches, right? So how do, some of the amateur, I would say amateur who are not professional, right? Amateur writers or amateur, painters who share deep interest in painting or, writing and kind of writes for his own sake, but keeps it to himself or herself, right? So how do you create a network of, this kind of creators, right? And so that they are able to take their creations out in the market, right? Again, to shared network of people.
That's a different idea. That's not this idea. It is an idea, and you can work on that idea. If that's your passion, you should work on that idea. These are, the reason I publish these ideas into our community and into the world at large is to trigger other ideas and related ideas. So yes, absolutely, you can take on that. If the writers or the painters is your primary passion, you should think about how to create a network for that community. That's not this idea. This idea is a very different idea. This is a consumer of culture idea as opposed to a producer of culture idea. And those are two completely different networks, I think.
Correct, Sramana. I agree to what you said. I was thinking that, this idea kind of also builds upon what you have articulated, right? It could be a feature in the same kind of a network as well. That's what I was trying to get to.
Maybe.
Because if you are enabling that, the friendship matchmaking, or if you are enabling a, the group formation around literature or film, right? that kind of also built upon, that you are enabling building a closed circle of writers or closed circle of, content creators. You talked about user-generated content.
One of the features could be a writers group.
Correct. You talked about the, the user-generated content, right? So I was kind of trying to build upon that idea. It could also be part of the same platform. So that's what I was kind of hinting at. Yeah.
Okay, good point.
Because whatever, one thought. Whatever I think you articulated, right, is about building a network around the shared interest, right?
Yes.
So
that's
you can enable various functions, if you are able to build that network. That's what I try to mean, It could benefit the readers, it could benefit the writers, it could benefit, people who just want to form friendship. So it could benefit in various ways. And all this kind of ties down to, I think the one
if you dilute it, it will not work. One feedback I will give you is if you dilute it, it will not work. You have to kind of stay focused on a core idea and a set of core functionalities that you do really well. And if you dilute it, it's not going to work, is my...
Folks, I hope you found that conversation interesting. It's a window into how you dissect an idea. You kind of take an idea, you start brainstorming about it, look at what features would be interesting, what are the other ideas out there, what are the competitive landscape ideas out there, who's doing what. So I showed you one entrepreneur who's already working on a related idea. There's another entrepreneur who's kicking around ideas around writing more than reading. So it was a very interesting panel, right, to brainstorm with. So we can do more of this. We have I'm going to sign off soon, but if you are working on any idea or any business already that has already started to be in the market and you want my feedback, the best way to get that would be to come to one of our free public roundtables. That happens every week on Thursday morning, Pacific time, 8 a.m. So we have one this week, this Thursday, and I look forward to seeing some of you there. If you would like to pitch, all you need to do is go to our website, 1m1m.com, and go to free public roundtables. On the top navigation bar, you will find the entire schedule, registration links, etc. there, and lots of instructions. And you will hear back from my colleague Maureen Kelly on how to, go to the next step. I look forward to seeing some of you there, and on these ideas, by the way, the ones that are my ideas, if any of you pick it up, by all means, come and touch base. And if you would like to work with me on one of my ideas that you want to take on and execute on, feel free to join the program, and I will do everything I can to make you successful. I'm having a blast, absolutely, right now, working with Abe Lederman, who's working on one of the ideas from the post-COVID world startups, and I'm introducing him to tons of people, and it's been really great. And he's a good entrepreneur. Abe has been around. He's done one venture before within 1 million by 1 million, and he has sold his company recently and has come back into the program. So we go back a long way. He's also an MIT alum, like me. So it's been great fun. All right, folks, I have taken quite a bit of your time this morning. I hope you enjoyed the session, and I will see you soon. Bye.